Welcome to the Atomic Level. I'm Chris Snook, your host, and this is where we decode the matters of wealth with one insightful conversation at a time. Today, I'll be joined by Ron Mayfield of HV Capital Management. Ron's a CFA and the Chief Investment Officer. We're going to learn about the firm and also his story, but more importantly, just the lessons of what it's like on the front line of asset management today, and then also what it's been like over the course of his career. Ron, welcome to the Atomic Level. It's super great to have you. Look forward to the conversation.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
So let's start with kind of how you got here. It's always good to get a little bit of backstory and personalize it a little bit. You know, did you grow up coming out of the womb, ready to manage assets, or what was the path, from childhood to this career choice? What got you started?
Great question. So I come from a very humble background. My dad left myself and our family when I was 3, and I'm the oldest of 2 other siblings. And it sounds like a tough road, totally financially, nothing out of the and no male role models. So a lot of people say, but I think it's the biggest stroke of luck I've ever got in life. You learn how to be resourceful. I have one great parent, some don't, right? And I learned a lot from her. She went back to nursing school, showed that hard work really pays off. I joke with people I meet, my first job in finance was in a bank when I was like 8, 9, and 10 years old. Because if we had friends over, they would come too. We would go clean up the banks, and this is before everything was kind of digital. The tellers have paper all over the place and stuff. So that's where my finance career got started. But I graduated in 2008 with a finance degree. Terrific, right? I don't know how many people you meet graduating from 2008. A large majority of them are not still in the field that they study for, right? So I am clearly, right? And that was another point in time that really I had to let the grit kind of play out, stick with it and things like that. I went to school as a finance major, not because I love finance, because I knew I was going to have to pay these loans back, and it was practical. And lucky too, because it's a career and now I founded a business where I get to compete every day, right, with other firms and things like that. So I did really well in college and worked in the city for a while. We were talking before this, I have a beautiful, smart 14-year-old girl. Wasn't planned, right? So I'm in the city working like what I was doing there. And she's 2.5 hours north, right? So I ended up going up into the Hudson Valley and worked with a great boss and mentor and learned a lot, right? And we were at a place where we felt the best way to continue to deliver for our clients and add value was to start our own firm, which is now HV Capital Management. Prior to that, I'm deputy CIO for about 10 years there.
Excellent. So coming up from that fast forward from childhood all the way through that, was there anything else in the competitive nature there that kind of led you into the industry, or did you play sports? Did you come up with any other cellular kind of DNA around team competition, things like that? Because I know that we'll get into it in a little bit. I know you talk a lot about your partners and kind of how critical they've been to this recent move, but that orients somebody to kind of a team sport mentality. I'm just curious if you had any of that in your background
We played a lot of sports, right? In high school, I played basketball, football. I played a little baseball too. Always competitive. I mean, I would say even before that, right? Me and my brother, he's a year younger than me. We're kind of Irish twins. But whenever we had a spare moment, and this was pre-iPhone, so we'd have a lot of boring times too, right? We would be racing or, playing horse or twin. So it's like a constant thing. And like the drive to always continue to improve. I don't know if I'm blessed with that or what. So some people that come from a similar background don't have that. So I don't know how innate it is, or nature versus nurture, but that's something I can't remember not having. So I played a lot of sports in high school, went to college, and I worked construction all through college. So the sports kind of took a backseat. But even there, right, you want to learn, and you learn really quick. If you can work hard, you can kind of, get the things that you want, right? So that's, and I think I'm a pretty smart person, but I know I'm smart enough that if I work hard and put my mind to something, I can accomplish it.
I know it was interesting in the pre-interview, you mentioned something I want to dive into a little bit more about being a builder by nature, but I didn't understand that you also did some construction along the way, which is kind of ironic. So talk to me about, one of the more critical decision points or inflection points in your career, and maybe it was the most recent one, I'm not sure. So whether it was the most recent decision to kind of go out and start HV Capital Management, or was it something prior to that? What was one of the biggest inflection points and what you consider one of the more important decision trees in your career?
So I'm blessed, I think, to kind of have ended up in this business. When I'm, a poor kid from Port Jervis, New York, which is not the greatest area, I'm smart, right? And I'm kind of successful, but relatively to the people I'm around, it's like a shoulder shrug, right? Then you go and I'm at a community college for a couple of years, right? And yeah, I do really well, 4.0, but it's like, yeah, but I'm right. And then I went to a, 4-year, got my bachelor's degree, got the CFA. And it's still relative to where you are. But when you have a chance to meet successful people, successful business operators, I was able to understand that I deserve to be here too, right? And I can build things and make an impact on this planet too. And I had the benefit of working for two guys that were really great, gave me autonomy, let me build things, right? Like our quantitative kind of process that we utilized, as well as, right now I'm learning with Python to build every investor that invests in U.S. public companies, right, has a tax issue and taxable accounts, right? So worked on some software things to kind of build that out. And part of that was you have to be efficient now, right? And we have the tools to do it. So at my prior spot, again, the people I work for, very lucky. They're great, gave me autonomy to build systems and processes that allowed us there to punch way above our weight class. And that's something I'm continuing to do here. And that really kind of gives you the confidence. You don't need institutional scale anymore to really deliver for your clients, right?
Yeah, it's so funny. One of the core values at ATOMIQ is that, if you want a seat at the table, bring the table. And it never gets old for me when I meet people like you and I kind of hear that chip, like that little. It's not like an unhealthy chip. Like what I hear a tremendous sense of gratitude in one regard, right? Like, you're just grateful that you're in the game, but then there's like this edge, too. And I think, it just seems like time and time again that's just a critical component of making it, is that idea that you never really quite did, but then balancing that out with the recognition that you have achieved something. So, how do you go about doing that? Like, because it's a strength and a liability sometimes, right? It can work for you or against you.
Yeah, so I think it works for me, but I don't know if I felt like I've made it yet, or if I ever will. So you meet these people, right? I don't know if they think that either. There's always something else you can do. There's always a way you can improve. And I mean, I hope to get there one day where I have a little bit more contentment than what I do now. But certainly, I feel like I'm just getting started and haven't done too much yet. So it's a tough question, but I'm probably not good at the concept you're questioning me about.
Well, I think you're a little bit younger than me too, and I think one of the things that we all do is you just kind of run through these iterations of yourself, right? Like as you progress through the career, and you just try to not get too far over your skis, as the analogy would go, because there's a time and place for everything, right? So like when I look at where I'm at now versus where I was 10 years ago at 40, you're humbled by it, and at the same time you're still driven by it, and it just evolves. It's kind of some of the juice is around kind of just being able to watch yourself grow as a professional, as a career. What have you learned? What are some of the hard lessons that you've learned by proxy? Like, in other words, you didn't have to experience it directly, but because you've helped families manage their wealth, maybe you've learned something to avoid, or something of a shortcut. Like, what are some of the ones that stand out to you in your career thus far?
I think that's a great question. And again, the benefit is understanding these families that have means in ways that I could never understand, right? I didn't come from there. I think one thing is worth mentioning before I get into that is the incredible amount of respect I have for people that grew up more comfortable than I did, but still push, right? So I think that's really interesting. But the lesson that everyone should know is money doesn't do it, right? That doesn't get you to happiness, contentment. Especially when it's given to you, right, by maybe you inherited or something like that. So I think that's a misnomer, and it's helping me, right? So you mentioned balance. I try to be present in the precious time that I have with my family, my mom, my brothers, sisters, my daughter, right, is my partner. So I think that's it, right? And also, eventually, even the most successful guys, they get to a point where it's over. So the concept of enjoying your way there, right? I think that also enables you to get through some tough things and do some things that might be challenging. You have to learn to enjoy that ride. And so I think that would be another lesson.
So talk to us about the transition recently. Were you with a broker dealer? Were you with another large RIA? What was the kind of old configuration? And then talk to us about HV Capital Management and how you guys are set up today.
Sure. So we were with what's called a captive RIA. It's owned by a bank in the area, And I'm not going to be disparaging, right, or take things personal. I think we had a great relationship for over a decade, and there was just some misalignment with steps forward. We feel convicted that the best way to grow a business is to add a ton of value for your clients, and great things will happen. And we, not that they don't do that or don't think that too, but we felt as a fiduciary, or just as a human, right, that's cares, right, and has maybe insight and provides advice to people that know less about a subject area, you have this responsibility to really do what's best for them, right? So we're constantly scrutinizing that. And that's what really led us to say, okay, we're constantly scrutinizing. We're at a point, especially with the two extraordinary individuals that I partnered up with on this, that the best way to continue to deliver elite investment management with a laser focus on the client and the relationship was to start a firm, which is what we did.
Yeah, it's not a small decision, especially when you're operating under the infrastructure of another institution, whether it's a bank or whether it's a larger group. What were some of the things that went easier than you thought? What were some of the more challenging aspects of kind of transitioning over, whether it was the book, the clients, the infrastructure,
So operationally, it seems so like an easy business, right? But to rebuild it from scratch, especially I developed some proprietary things that I couldn't kind of really just take with me, to rebuild everything. But even just getting clients over and getting the accounts in, that was a lot more difficult than I thought. However, I believe this, right? When someone would say, yeah, and so we manage institutional assets too, high net worth, we did do the whole gamut. But when someone says yes to me, like, yeah, sure, I'll work with you, and it develops into a great relationship. That's fine. When they had said yes to, a larger institution with me, coupled with a bank, right, and me. When people decide to come and work with me now, it means so much more, right? They're saying yes to me, and my partners.
Right.
It means a lot.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where not only does it mean more, but it also requires more, right? So you kind of get the benefit and the kind of weight of carrying and doing things even better than you have. So it's, sounds like for someone like yourself who's innately, competitive, or like you said, maybe it's a little nurture in nature. It's just a leveling up. It's kind of allowing you to discover a new aspect of the game that you want to lean into. So as it relates to your leadership now, like where are you focused on personally right now? Like your own next level, like where are you leaning in the most as a leader?
So always transparency, consistency, and I think root cause thinking. It's one of the things that might even be a little bit easier. So if I'm in an office with 15 to 20 people, right, we're managing almost $2 billion. It's different than starting something from here and kind of where we are there with. We have my two partners and then a couple of other associates. So it's really condensed. But between being the people I really work with every day as 3 equal equity stake ownerships, it clears a lot of the. So you don't have to deal any longer with some of the politics and the human resource nuances with others. So that's kind of cleared the way to just be really honest, really transparent about where we want to go, what we want to do, and how we want to do it. And if I'm a big believer, and if you just always get back to the root cause or where you want to go, right? Like let's reverse engineer that. You get to the root cause of how to get there. And then again, I have the confidence. I know there's going to be some stumbling blocks. There's going to be some challenges, but with the 2 people I'm working with and myself, I feel like we're going to compete shoulder to shoulder with anyone. And as those challenges come, we're going to figure out how to iterate, sidestep some, and kind of work through things. So I'm excited, but that's the leadership technique now. Where do we want to go? How do we want to do it? What is it? What might it look like? Because you don't really know, right? I read a funny quote on the Bloomberg today by Niches, and he says, there are no facts, right? Only interpretations. And that's kind of thing. We don't know where this thing is going. We can just kind of base case it and understand that it will be difficult at times, and we have the confidence to persevere. So that's the tact I'm taking now.
Yeah. So is that kind of part of the ethos at HV Capital Management too? Just when you onboard clients, or whether they're new, meaning like you haven't had them in the old book, they're net new, or whether they were transitioning from your last situation, is this root cause thinking kind of part of the new DNA, or is that more of a personal mantra? Where does it blend into kind of how you shape up the client conversations?
Yeah, no, I think it has to be in everything that we do, right? You onboard someone and it doesn't matter transition or not, you're new, right? You just founded something. Why did you do it? And lucky for us, the reason is we feel it's the best thing for the client, and we'll do well too, right? Eventually, but we're building this And I say this all the time. I get scoffed at once in a while, but I want to be the best investor on the planet. That's